WWE was in need of a shakeup. They had a shakeup. It went great, and Raw and SmackDown Live just proved that these changes are very valuable, and it's making things very unpredictable, and I like that a lot. My personal favorite show of the week has to be Monday Night Raw, because so much went down that just spoke to my heart. And I'll tell you why in a brief second. Welcome to my review of Monday Night Raw. So as we said, WWE was in need of a shakeup, and personally I have been more of a SmackDown Live guy now since the brand split happened. So when you open up the whole show with the awesome one, The Miz, and the gorgeous Maurice coming out, imitating John Cena and Nikki Bella, I was like, wow, this is so cool. Not awesome just yet. I love you, Miz, but it wasn't you that made this awesome. It was when Dean Ambrose came out. Someone I haven't been the biggest of fans of since the brand split. He just came on there and he just opened up the show perfectly because it made it unpredictable. It was exciting to see the Intercontinental Champion on Monday Night Raw. What is the implications? What's going to happen with the championships? What title is going to be where? It was so many questions that we just had to stick around, watch the show to get the answers to. A rough debut night on Raw for The Miz, but the awesome one is sure to come back. But in this next segment, when he was with Kurt Angle and Sami Zayn, it didn't go too well there either, and a match was set up for later on in the night. But we kicked it off with a great match, and I really like this. You had the New Day and the Revival, and because New Day was going to SmackDown, take a little bit of time off, it was a good decision to have them lose. The Revival are looking so strong. They look actually like the strongest tag team on the level of the Hardys, and it's so cool to see them on the main roster. They are my personal favorite tag team in the whole world. So to see them now dominating and beating the longest reigning world tag team champions in history, it's just incredible. So I think that this was a great opening match. It makes the crowd excited. It gives the Revival the rub that they deserve, and the New Day is able to take some time off without looking weak, because they got crushed because the Revival was smarter, and you could say that had they not made a mistake in the end, then it would have gone differently. Then we had the most pointless segment of the night. You just have to face the facts. Kurt Hawkins, I'm sorry man, I love you. I really do. You are incredible. And I wish that you would have been used as someone who could be in the IC title picture, in the US title picture. But instead, you're left with getting knocked out by the Big Show after saying, you gotta face the facts. I'm sorry man, I'm sorry. You are golden, but the gold is not going to be around your waist anytime soon. And this whole run for him has been actually very disappointing. I wish that WWE would start to give this man a shot. Give Kurt Hawkins what he needs. He needs to put on the matches we know he can do, because when he wrestles independently, he's great. He's doing better matches with Grimm from Grimm's Toy Show than any of his WWE matches since he has come back. So I think that he's definitely needed to go back to how he was pre his Kane stuff, back to when he was a solo act, and I think that he can do wonders, but now I'm just wondering why he is even there. Then we had a great story, and maybe one of my favorite stories going out from Raw, and that's the story with TJ Perkins. TJ Perkins and Neville talked backstage, and Neville really got into Perkins's head, and this was so well executed, because you do not see him really turn or do anything. He doesn't really say much after Neville starts to talk. So then when Austin Aries comes out and starts to talk with Perkins and Neville, you finally see that Perkins is starting to think, wait, Neville is right. This Austin Aries guy, he's actually taking my opportunities away from me. And he starts to think, and he starts to figure out things for himself, and he goes out there, has the match, and he wins the match because of the distraction of Neville when Austin Aries starts to mock Neville, and Neville just runs over and is like very, very angry. And Perkins win. And the moment he wins, Aries is like, oh no. And then he goes and looks at Neville. He doesn't give Perkins the anything. Perkins doesn't really get, any reaction from Aries, and it eats up Perkins inside. It's like, I just defeated you and you're not focused on me. So he runs in and he lays Austin Aries out. And I loved it. It was a great heel turn. It was a great way to make TJ Perkins, feel more human, feel more like a legit character too. It's brilliant. And I really, really wonder how this is going to play out in the coming weeks. What's going to happen at Payback? Well, there's only one way to find out what's going to happen, and that's by watching. And I love that feeling of, I need to watch this. I need to figure out what is happening with TJ Perkins. But speaking of great things, this right here was a fantastic segment. The segment where we're going to find out the fate for Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins starts this off, and it's very interesting. Oh, is he going to SmackDown? Because that was what many people thought before the Superstar shakeup. Oh, he's going to SmackDown, he's going to be the top guy there. And he comes out and he has this long emotional speech, and he is talking about how he does not want to take the easy way out. He wants to fight with everyone, but he knows it's going to be so hard because the authority is going to do everything they can to stop him, everything they can to make him pay for what he did at WrestleMania. And the crowd is feeling, and you can feel the emotions, and you start to get so invested in the Seth Rollins character. And then Kurt Angle comes out and he says, you know what, if this conversation had been prior to WrestleMania, you would not have stayed on Raw. But I believe in you, and I want you to stay on Raw. I want you to stay on my show and put on the best show possible. And he sees this as a victory, and the people see this as a victory, and Rollins just gets established as the top face. And then Samoa Joe comes out and they start to brawl, and it's exciting, and you're just like, no, we hate you, Joe. And they have a great little brawl there. And then Rollins gets the upper hand, and the crowd goes wild, and they have this stare down with each other, and it's very, very cool, and it's very exciting to see that they are going to stay on the same show, and they are going to maybe finish this at Payback. Then we had Charlotte Flair against Nia Jax in a match that was the send-off for Charlotte. Brilliantly booked. The fact is that Charlotte has now, ever since the Royal Rumble, been making sure that Raw is in safe hands with the women. She has now done everything she needs to do, and she has been able to both lose her streak. She is not the champion. She has made everyone on the women's side of the roster look very strong, and she in the end now put Nia Jax over. I was afraid of her health because Nia Jax was she did some mistakes, and they could have been very dangerous. It's very important to stay focused during the match, and maybe she was tired or her head wasn't completely in this, but there were some very dangerous moments in this match, especially when you see Charlotte gets dropped on her head, and then their moonsault and all that, and Nia Jax isn't able to really put this match together. She isn't able to really lead this match. But Charlotte takes the control, and Charlotte is able to, make the match go in the right direction, and is able to make Nia Jax look very strong. And Nia Jax looked so strong on this episode of Raw. And I like the fact that the women's divisions are small divisions of very, very talented female wrestlers that all get to shine. There's no one on this roster that doesn't get to shine. On Raw, you saw that Dana Brooke and Emma is going to have a little feud now, and that looks great. So I think that you have every single female on the roster in a very good spot, and that's great because it's actually my favorite division in the WWE. After that match, we had Jinder Mahal against Finn Balor, and The match was good. It did what it had to do. It made Finn Balor come back in a strong way. Unfortunately, he got concussed because of what Jinder Mahal did. It was that elbow, and Balor was very out of it. Hopefully, it's not too bad, but it's important to actually stay safe. So maybe you should take a few weeks off now from wrestling. What he did later on after the match with Bray Wyatt was great, and it was great because he didn't do anything, but Bray Wyatt came out there, and you get this feeling of, wow, I want to see this. It's very interesting, and I think that if Bray Wyatt starts to play these mind games with Finn Balor while feuding with Randy Orton, you could actually have Finn Balor in this horror match for the title, and not as a participant, but as someone who maybe interferes, something like that, to set off a good feud and still make Wyatt look strong. Because now it's kind of obvious that Randy Orton is going to win. We go on to Sami Zayn against The Miz. A fine match, the right guy goes over, Sami Zayn gets a little rub, he gets elevated, and he is able to defeat The Miz, go out on a high note, and The Miz can take a loss. He can. The Miz is there now to establish these younger talents that they are going to get so much out of, and I think it's smart to then have Sami Zayn defeat him. The way he lost isn't really that hurtful because The Miz was, trying to cheat and all that, and he was at times cheating together with Maurice. So he then gets outsmarted by Sami Zayn with a roll-up. So he wasn't like down and out, he was just caught off guard, you could say. So I think that was a good way to make The Miz not have a very devastating loss. Then we have the fantastic main event for the second hour. We had Braun Strowman destroying a ambulance and Roman Reigns. And that segment just became better and better and better and better and better. You start the segment by having Roman Reigns kind of pushing aside his heelish tactics and heelish way of, being that he has now been for the past month. So I think that was wrong, but it was good in the sense of WWE is trying to now build up a monster and something that Roman needs to overcome. But in return, they have now created, you could say actually, the biggest and most popular star on the roster. You have now Braun Strowman, who comes in, saves the day by just throwing Reigns around, and I felt like, okay, you know what, that's enough. I felt it was enough after the table spot, after like 30 seconds. So when he then comes and he just pushes this whole box filled with equipment, and you just hear everything inside of Roman just get destroyed, and then I'm like, okay, now they went too far. And then he goes on a stretcher, and then he gets pushed off the side into the parking lot, and he falls down, and it's like, what just happened? Oh my god. And you just think, okay, now it's done, wow. And then Roman comes into the ambulance, and Strowman is like, I'm not done yet, runs in, starts to punch Roman Reigns, and then flips a freaking ambulance. Oh my god. Isn't that the greatest thing ever? Isn't that the greatest moment ever? Isn't that just fantastic? It is fantastic, it is incredible, and it is one of the reasons I love wrestling so much. It puts me on this emotional roller coaster that, it just gives me so much, and I'm just so happy, and it was so incredible. And I'm someone who actually likes Roman Reigns, so it's not like I got joy out of the guy I hate is getting punished and beaten up, but it was like, this is so perfectly executed, this is so smart, this is so right book, this is such good storytelling, and this is creating a brand new dynamic and a brand new monster. Braun, of course, has always been a huge monster since he went solo, since he faced James Ellsworth. He has been huge, but now he is just on a level of being like one of the all-time biggest monsters ever. This right here is how you build a star. You build a star, you can make so much money out of this star if you do not go the route of how you have done it with the Big Show many times, when He's just there to be dominant for a little while, and then he gets crushed, and then he is a face. Let's hope they do something different. Let's hope that Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman's feud is going to end with maybe Strowman being on top and Roman having to overcome this. Then after that, we had the debut of the Drifter, kinda. He had been earlier on in the show in the crowd. It was like, it was so cool. It felt so real. He's just drifting away. And it was the Hardys and it was Cesaro and Sheamus who faced the Club and the Shining Stars. Okay match. He had some very good spots with the Hardys, which is very fun. It made the crowd pop again after having the biggest pop of the night with Braun Strowman. So I enjoyed it. I think it was very good to build up this title match, and I wonder what they're going to do with the Club, because the Club deserves better, but still someone needs to take the loss, and the Club and Shining Stars, I think that they can take a few more losses. It's not that bad. The Shining Stars hopefully will get kind of repackaged over on SmackDown, so it was not too hurtful. And also, it was the two biggest tag teams on Raw. Then we had one of my personal favorite segments, and it was the whole women's segment. We start with a really weird promo from Bayley, then a weird turn from Sasha, and then my favorite wrestler in the WWE comes out, and I freak out, I mark out, I jump around, it's late at night, but I do not care. It's Alexa Bliss, baby. Alexa Bliss. I just got so excited, and I was so happy, I was filled with joy, and I was thinking, this is the perfect trade for the women's division, to give Charlotte over to SmackDown, and then from SmackDown take Alexa Bliss. It's perfect, it's great, and it adds so much to the women's division. I'm kind of glad they're not in the same division, Charlotte and Bliss, that they are on different brands and different women's divisions there. So that's a good thing, because you can then save this match for maybe WrestleMania. And you now have the ability to put Nia Jax against Bayley for the title at Payback, and Sasha Banks against Bliss. But you also had Mickie James come back to Raw. She got a good reaction, but then she got crushed by Nia Jax, who ran in and just looked like a monster. Bliss then pushes Sasha Banks into Nia Jax. Team Rude is back for life, baby. And then Bayley gets crushed, and then Nia just takes the championship and says, this is going to be mine, and I think it can actually be hers. Nia Jax, she is so legit, and I think that she is deserving of having the championship, maybe not at Payback, but in not too long. And then we went on to the main event, which was a good match between the US champion Kevin Owens and the Intercontinental champion Dean Ambrose. And it was nice, it was a good match. Jericho get some revenge for what has happened after the loss at WrestleMania and getting powerbombed through a table the day after. So it was a nice send-off. And you could put this into their storyline as one of the key moments. And I think that this whole rivalry ending at Payback, that it's going to be a great way to end it. And it's very fun to have it be SmackDown versus Raw. And I really just love the feeling of you do not know where things are going to end up. Although they kind of spoiled that Owens is going to win, because they said that the winner of the title match is going to go to SmackDown Live, and I feel like they have now promoted Owens being on SmackDown Live so much that it's kind of strange to then just put him back to Raw. But that's what I think. I think that this has been a great episode of Raw. So good, in fact, I watched it 3 times. I think this right here is just proving of how fun WWE is. And I have been a fan for many years, but I think this year is my favorite that I've been a wrestling fan. I continue to be enjoyed every single week by at least one of the shows, if it is 205 Live, NXT, or even SmackDown Live or Raw. I have now switched brands from being Team SmackDown to being Team Raw, because Team Raw has my favorite tag team in the world in The Revival, my favorite male competitor in the world, The Miz, and my favorite female competitor and overall competitor, Alexa Bliss. So, thank you so much for listening. I would love to hear what you have to say. Check out my Twitter at NorWrestlingFan. I will reply to everything I follow back. We can hit up in the DMs. We can talk about professional wrestling because this is something we have a common love for. It is the greatest thing in the world, baby. And it is something that has just gotten very shaken up. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.